Well, it was a fun week, certainly, for the Microsoft, Activision, Sony situation. We saw Microsoft show up on stage at a press conference after dealing with regulators in the courtroom, showing off pie charts that look absolutely ridiculous to stand next to if you're an Xbox representative. But we got more information when it comes to deal making that was happening, and Sony still standing steadfast, saying we are not signing that Call of Duty agreement. And today I wanted to go over a few things, but mostly why Sony is doing everything they can to block this deal. And no, it doesn't actually come down to them potentially losing Call of Duty the game. It actually has to do with them losing something else. So if you guys enjoy this video, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe if you're new. So first of all, quick refresher here, things that were going on this week, which was quite a bit, had a lot to do with just social media in general, but there were some deals that were made, and all of this kind of happening almost 0 hour as they are rolling up to their day in court in front of regulators. Phil Spencer saying they signed a 10-year agreement with NVIDIA that will allow GeForce Now players to stream Xbox PC games as well as Activision Blizzard PC titles, including COD, following the acquisition. We're committed to bringing more games to more people however they choose to play. On top of that, they also signed a deal with Nintendo from Brad Smith, the president at Microsoft, saying Microsoft and Nintendo have now negotiated and signed a binding 10-year legal agreement to bring Call of Duty to Nintendo players, the same day as Xbox, with full feature and content parity, so they can experience Call of Duty just as Xbox and PlayStation gamers enjoy Call of Duty. We are committed to providing long-term equal access to Call of Duty to other gaming platforms, bringing more choice to more players, more competition to the game market, etc., etc., etc. Basically, just trying to win over regulators, saying, hey, we're trying to get Call of Duty everywhere we can. And in this instance, they used the Switch install base, and Brad Smith also went on record saying that Call of Duty will function on the Switch as you would expect. I don't know if that's exuding a lot of confidence or what people expect Call of Duty to run like, but that's what he said about that situation. But they use the Switch install size, so yeah, they're gonna, I assume, take a shot at getting Call of Duty on there one way or the other to at least appease everything they're saying here. But after all this is going down, we hear that Sony is not interested still in this 10-year deal that's been thrown around for so long. This was since, December 6th, 2022. Brad Smith apparently walks around with the contract in his pocket just in case Sony walks up to him on the street and says, we would like to sign that deal. The idea is they're ready to sign at any time, just whenever Sony wants to pick up the phone and call. So the question obviously comes back to, why won't Sony sign this deal? I mean, we're to the point now where people at Activision, like Lulu, is putting up these memes with Sony riding a bike, putting a stick in there, refuses to accept the guaranteed long-term access to COD. And then what if we lose access to COD on the ground there? Just saying, hey, there's a way for them to maintain Call of Duty on the PlayStation. Just sign a deal. Sony not doing that is them on the ground trying to figure out why they lost COD, right? And by the way, this meme, this whole thing here just seemed to have people online losing their mind. I don't know, I think they wanted just more professionals. I'm not sure. It's Twitter. Have they seen Twitter? Is Twitter professional? No. So I don't know. To me, it's just more tongue-in-cheek, just having fun with the situation that has, I think, gone on long enough to be deemed ridiculous at this point. I'm just ready for this deal to go through. I'm sure as many of you are, and we're coming up on the day that Microsoft is expecting this to have closed by, which is the end of June. So we're getting close. But I do think with the time that they put in with regulators this past week, I kind of feel like them turning NVIDIA to their side and Google being pretty quiet at this point. They're coming from more the cloud side of things. It sort of feels like it's Sony against the world right now. And it kind of makes sense, especially when you look at this most recent state of play. So what do I mean by that? Well, this recent state of play, while it got a lot of opinions based on how good it was, or really from a lot of people how bad it was, but if you look up and down the lineup of games here, there really wasn't anything from Sony's first party. I mean, I guess you can include Destiny 2 Lightfall because, to be fair, they own Bungie now. But outside of that, it's a lot of third parties and a lot of third-party deals that Sony has for marketing. Resident Evil, basically since the remake, but also before that with like Resident Evil 7. I mean, they tied that in with their PlayStation VR, but with those Resident Evil remakes like 2, remember that was showcased during a PlayStation event, and they immediately aligned the PlayStation logo and marketing with all of these newer Resident Evil games, the PS4 and on, right? And that's done very, very well for them. Baldur's Gate 3 was shown off, and people are looking at that as just a PlayStation 5 exclusive almost now online, but apparently what's going on here is they're having some issues in development with the Xbox version, and they just want to make sure it's up to a certain standard before they officially announce that it is coming out on Xbox. So it's still possible that it makes it out around this August 31st release date. It's not actually like an exclusive, necessarily console exclusive for the PS5, but it sure looked like it, didn't it, with some of the marketing and the way that they presented it here. Also, take into account that this year Sony they have their Horizon Call of the Mountain for PSVR 2 from their first party intellectual property, and then they have Spider-Man 2. So if you actually look around at this year, kind of a light year when it comes to Sony's first party studios. Now, things can change when a showcase happens, and I'm expecting it to take place, as Jeff Grubb has mentioned with the rumor mill, sometime in May, just ahead of E3, and I feel like that'll be a big blowout to really set up almost a good portion of what's left for the PS5. As weird as that sounds, they could announce things that are 3 or 4 years out even, but I think they're really going to start showcasing what their first-party studios are indeed working on. So they could sneak a few things into the second half of 2023 to go along with Spider-Man 2, but otherwise, they're holding things up with third-party timed exclusives and marketing that basically makes games look like it's just on the PlayStation, and by aligning it with their console, they do really well selling their system. So, like, Forspoken, probably not the best one to do, but them being aligned with Square Enix so heavily means they'll also have Final Fantasy 16, which is indeed a timed exclusive, we assume, for PlayStation. And what I mean is it'll most likely go to PC down the road. Who knows with Xbox, as Final Fantasy 7 Remake and all of this, that's firmly planted on PlayStation's system. But things like Resident Evil 4 Remake, it certainly looked like a lot of PlayStation logos around that every time it's been shown. And it will have VR2 support, which is once again Capcom working closely with Sony. Same with Resident Evil Village. That was kind of counted as almost a launch title, really, for the PSVR 2. And if you really consider the biggest game that Sony markets almost as a PlayStation, not necessarily exclusive, but they have a lot of content that sits just with PlayStation with early access for betas or maps or updates, it's Call of Duty. And what can we do with Call of Duty? You can set your clock to it, basically, right? It comes out every single year. Even in 2023, with the release coming up this year, we sort of heard that it might just be like a content patch or pack or something for the current Call of Duty, a little expansion that comes out. Maybe it's $30 or something. No, it sounds like they're going to push for a fully featured premium release that means most likely going to be $70 on the PS5 and the Xbox Series, but Sony would have some marketing around that, and based on what they are pushing heavily with their live service titles and the multiplayer aspect, seems like Call of Duty is one of the biggest reasons that people are signed up for PlayStation Plus in the first place when it comes to the multiplayer access. Remember, with popular free-to-play games that they take advantage of, things like Fortnite or even Call of Duty Warzone, you don't need PlayStation Plus for that. You need it for premium price games. Technically, you could look at Madden or FIFA and those type of games, but Call of Duty, every single year, 20 to 30 million selling. And as we see the splits in places like the UK where it's available, we see large splits in PlayStation's favor. While it is kind of just a smaller market compared to the world overall, it still gives us a bit of an idea as to where some of these copies and sales are falling, which means, yeah, people are buying PlayStation systems in order to experience Call of Duty that year. And that's the biggest reason Sony is not signing that deal. I don't think they believe they're going to lose Call of Duty at all. In fact, if you step back and look at the logistics, the amount of money behind the game when it comes to development, and the fact that they try to push one out every single year. So Microsoft would be taking a bath on Call of Duty there without PlayStation, at least for several years, trying to get more and more people on board with something like Game Pass. And in Microsoft's mind, hey, Game Pass is a good enough deal to attract you in the first place. We can still sell it for $70 on PlayStation's platform, probably $70 on Nintendo's platform as well, and certainly on PC with Steam. Probably one of the big reasons Valve didn't even bother signing a contract. It's like, what are you going to do? Not put it on Steam and sell it to all the PC gamers? So that is Sony's biggest issue right now, and it runs up in 2024 for their marketing. I wouldn't be surprised if they came back to the table and said, look, we'll sign a deal because it seems like this is going to go through. At least I still believe it will. But you got to give us a new marketing contract for 10 years as well. And if you're Microsoft, you're not taking that deal because part of the whole thing is you want to market Call of Duty alongside of the Xbox brand. It's one of the reasons Sony did so well during the PlayStation 4 cycle. They had Call of Duty next to that console every single year, and it worked out really, really well. In fact, the generation before that, who had Call of Duty? It was Xbox. The 360 did really, really well, so it kind of shows the trend, and I think Microsoft is ready to bring it all full circle, bring it back to the green brand there with the Xbox and Call of Duty lining up in Game Pass. And I don't know how much longer Sony can hold out here, but I almost don't think they would sign a 10-year agreement anyway because they don't feel the need to set that in stone since Call of Duty is probably not going away from PlayStation in the first place. But let me know what you guys think about this one down below, especially after seeing State of Play, the reliance they have right now on many of these third-party games when it comes to marketing to fill in the gaps between what are very, very long development cycles with their first-party studios. Is it worth them putting up the fight to try to keep marketing rights for Call of Duty going forward into the future? Thanks, guys, for watching, and I'll see you next time.